Good morning, everybody, and I'm glad to have this opportunity just to share a short reflection this morning. And all of us here beginning this novena, I'm sure we've all had our moment when we first heard about St. John Bosco. For me, I first heard of St. John Bosco when I went to school in Carricon in West Clare. I'm from that area, and the Salesian Sisters ran a school there from 1962 until 2002. So that was my first experience of hearing about St. John Bosco. And later I worked in that school as well for a number of years before coming here to Limerick. So my experience of Salesian life is in secondary school. And I suppose before I start talking about Laura Vicuna, we have to first of all, I suppose, see where it fits in the life of Don Bosco and Don Bosco's system of education. So St. John Bosco's specific work with young people began on the 8th of December in 1841, when a young boy came into the sacristy to Don Bosco, who at that time was a young priest, and he was getting ready to say Mass. And this young lad wasn't able to read or write, he didn't have any religious instruction, and his parents were dead and he had no work. And Don Bosco was very taken by his circumstances. And after a chat with him, they said the Hail Mary together, and he asked him to come back the following Sunday and bring his friends with him, which the boy did. And that began what became known in Turin at the time as Don Bosco's oratory, where young boys would gather with Don Bosco to play games and have religious instruction. And little by little, because of the need of these lads to have education, Don Bosco began to establish schools. And the schools he established then were to address the needs of these lads, and what we have today is that these schools and Salesian schools have spread into 132 countries. So from a small beginning, we have the great Salesian movement that we have today. And Don Bosco's approach was quite different to what was the norm at the time. And Don Bosco started what is known now as a preventive system. And there are three core elements in that, which is reason, religion, and loving kindness. I suppose the words are self-explanatory, in that reason is that we're reasonable with young people. We give them, if we expect them to do something, we explain why. The religion obviously is the spiritual dimension of life, and that for Don Bosco, God as a loving God. And there is one little maxim that was very, very common in Salesian schools throughout the world, and that phrase is, God sees me and loves me. And Don Bosco wanted to make that a reality for young people who came to any of his institutions. And then, of course, loving kindness is our approach to people, a gentleness and a care and a support to young people as they're growing into adulthood. So these three elements, reason, religion and loving kindness, are what makes Salesian schools and Salesian establishments special. And Laura Vicuna, Blessed Laura Vicuna, whom we celebrate today, attended a Salesian school in Chile, which was run by the Salesian Sisters. And she was educated in this environment of reason, religion, and loving kindness. She was born in 1891. Her family were well off, and her father was a soldier, and at the time of the outbreak of the Civil War. In that war, her father died, and after that, Mercedes, her mother, found it very hard to make ends meet, so she left Chile and went into Argentina. And she was trying to educate she had two daughters, she was trying to educate them, so she took work in a hostel, and the hostel was run by a man called Manuel Mora. And he said that he would pay for Laura's education if she lived with him as his partner. So Laura attended boarding school with the sisters, and she loved her time in the school. However, when she returned home, she was to be the victim of Manuel Mora's sexual abuse. He beat her very badly, and one of these beatings left her unconscious. And though she recovered consciousness, Laura never really recovered her health, and she died at the age of 16. And throughout her life in the school, she was an exceptional girl, had an extraordinary awareness of God in her life, and would often say that. And in one of her things, the pieces that were found after she died, she had written the following: "The remembrance of the presence of God accompanies me and helps me always wherever I may be." And I suppose this morning, if we, linking it back to the gospel reading that we have heard, the line, "The hairs on your head have been counted." The young boy who met Don Bosco and Laura, whom we're celebrating today, would have come to an awareness of this in their lives, of their specialness and how much they are cherished by God. And all of us, as we go through childhood and into adult life, part of our growing towards maturity is the confidence that comes when something within us assures us that we are of value and that we are of worth. And that for me sums up the message that St. John Bosco wanted to give to young people, that they are important and cherished and that they are loved by God. And in the school in Fernbank where I work, there is a picture which has the phrase, "Your influence like your shadow extends where you may never be." There are millions of people throughout the world like ourselves here this morning. We never actually met Don Bosco, but we've been influenced by his way of education and by his love for young people. So today, as we think about Don Bosco, we can think maybe of how we as individuals can be are of influence in our own homes, with our own families, and in our neighbourhood and in our parish. And having been blessed with the gift of faith that we have, like Don Bosco, we can find ways of passing on the blessings we have been given. And we can bring the message to people that they are loved by God and that their lives are special. And today, the feast of Laura Vicuna, maybe somebody needs to hear from me and maybe somebody needs to hear from you that the hairs on your head are counted.